This week's video is going to be about changing out some lighting on my tank. I have been running metal halides with VHO lighting for, I'd say 12 years. And I refuse to give up my metal halides. I'm using twin arc bulbs that I've spoken about before. And those are a type of bulb that let me switch from one color to another color just by turning them off and back on again. I'll show those to you in a second. And then the VHOs, which stand for very high output, those are a type of T12 bulb that have been around forever, but you can't buy them anymore. So while I have a perfectly good ballast, I have no bulbs. And my bulbs on the tank are about 16 months old, and they're just done. So I have to switch. And I went and talked with ReefBrite about getting their LED strip, which is this one right here. And I thought that this could be amazing, but I wanted to make sure it was strong enough because my lighting's way up high off the surface of the water. This is the twin arc bulb from ReefBrite, and you can see there's two separate bulbs in here. This one is the 10K bulb, and this is the 20K. So 10,000 Kelvin, 20,000 Kelvin. Every time it turns on the first time using their ballast, it will be in a daylight mode, which is sunlight. And then when you turn it off and back on, it switches to the bluer mode that everyone loves. And so I replace these annually on my tank. And they are also the same company. So it's kind of cool because I'm actually upgrading my lighting, and all my lighting will match because it's all from the same company. I went ahead and plugged it in just to kind of give you a preview of what to expect. It's really freaking bright. And this is the XHO light fixture. They have a normal one that would be closer to the water, but the XHO is what I need because it's going to be 16 inches off the water. So what's involved in changing out this lighting? The first thing I have to do is I had to figure out how I'm going to connect it to my light rack. It comes with these metal brackets that I reversed one, and I think it'll be easier to mount it and to screw it into the steel. And I've got to remove the old VHO assembly. So first thing I'm going to do is turn off the lights, and I'll use my Apex to do that. So I've got Apex Fusion on my screen here, and I can just turn them off. And now the VHOs are off, and I can start to do the disassembly. I'll remove the ballast, I'll remove all the wiring. I had it secured to what were called VHO end caps. All that's going away. And then this will replace it. And because of these brackets on the end, I can actually pivot it to kind of aim it toward the center of the reef rather than just shooting straight down and kind of get that sweet spot. There's two of these lights going on the tank, one in the front and one in the back. So the game plan, now that everything's been taken apart, is we changed the way the bracket are oriented on the end of the light fixture, so that way it was less long and it would fit on the original acrylic plates that are glued to the light rack. We're going to drill some holes where the nuts and bolts are going to go through to hold it together. And I'm using stainless steel screws and nuts because who doesn't just keep stainless steel on hand at all times for reef projects? It's working! It's working so nicely! Did some quick testing just to see what electricity is being used by the XHOs, and one strip was using 43 watts, the other one is using 44. So let's just assume they're both the same. That's about 88 watts of power being consumed versus before each VHO was 160 watts or 320. So from 320 down to 88, that's a good significant savings in electricity every single day. sum up, the installation went very smoothly. It was really just a matter of picking placement and then securing it. And the nuts and bolts held it in place fine. It's not very heavy. I didn't weigh them, but they just don't weigh very much. My entire light rack, the whole assembly with those big pendants, is about 100 pounds. So, you know, maybe I shaved off a pound off this entire project because you got the VHO bulbs and you got the ballast. But we put the new power supplies and the LEDs that are in their little case. So it might be about the same weight overall. But other than that, they turn on and off instantly. I already got them programmed into the Apex now. I switched it. It used to say VHOs, and now it says XHO front and XHO back, because each one has its own power supply. Before I had one ballast that did 2 bulbs. Now I have to do a power supply per light strip. But it looks really nice. The only problem I ran into, if you want to call it a problem, is that my tank is doing some goofy stuff right now. I think that there's a bacterial bloom that's happening because I just hooked up a new reactor full of biopellets. And I noticed, you know, 2 days ago the water was crystal clear, it was amazing. And then today when I wanted to do this project and film it, it was a little bit murky or cloudy. And it could be the anemones are spawning because all the anemones look really upset right now. It could be that there's a bacterial bloom because of the Microbacter 7 and the Prodibio. It could just be biopellets doing their thing. Something cool that happened today was that Tullio decided to come visit, and he is the guy that runs a company called calls ReefBrite, and works with Joy. They both came to visit, wanted to see the reef. They were in town to see their grandchild, and I said, come look at your XHOs over my tank, because I'm so impressed with them. And in the earlier part of this video, you have seen the installation process. Now is kind of a perfect time to get some questions answered specifically by the guy that runs the company.
Well, I don't know about runs it. Joy really runs
I
the
know,
company.
it's kind of a teamwork thing. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus here. I wanted to know, basically, with these lights, how we were able to get the beautiful colors so far down when they're so high up. And because you were sure, and I was so nervous. I kept thinking there's just no way. I'm used to having my lights way up high, so I have room to work in the tank. And you said it'll absolutely work. So how did you know it was going to work?
Well, basically, with LEDs in general, they have what's known as a center beam angle. Okay, this center beam angle is typically very powerful and can penetrate quite deep into aquariums. The key with the lights for your tank to replicate that VHO look, if you will, was the treatment of that light so that we didn't over-collimate the light so you don't get that disco effect.
Right.
So we combine the central, the XHOs, the great feature of those is you still get the benefit of that center beam angle, but then by treating the other light that's reflected and basically interspersed, if you will, with the light that's being transmitted. It gives you great coverage and just a very natural look.
It really does, because when I look at my sandbed, I don't see the disco effect at all. And right now, one metal halide is on.
Yes.
One of the twin arc ReefBrites, because I love those bulbs. Which is your company too. I literally, everything matches on my tank now. It's all from one place. It's kind of fun.
Remind me to give you that $20 I owe you.
20 is 20 per bulb.
Oh, okay.
But you've got just a nice hue of metal halide the way I like it. The VHO kind of did that fill-in, but I couldn't get the bulbs anymore.
Right.
And when you said, well, this will replace it, I had my doubts. I was wrong. I literally am very pleased at the result. And what I was trying to understand was how we got away from the disco effect. So you're saying that the cones, they're not a single cone, because that would give you the disco. But
Right.
they crisscross.
Yes. Basically,
A little.
When I designed the reflectors for the XHOs, like I was explaining to AJ earlier, the key was getting away from the whole aspect of the reflector itself. Meaning, like when we think of reflectors, we think in terms of reflecting light.
Right.
The key to the design of the XHO was actually causing the light that was being reflected to collide with the center beam angle, breaking it up, so that the light is more incoherent, so that you get that more natural spread like you would from a VHO lamp.
Well, it's definitely doing the job. And it's such a clean system. And you had mentioned at one point, did I have it hooked up to my Apex so I could dim it? Is that a feature that does work with this?
Yes. We do offer an LED interface module that you can use to control and set your ramp and dim schedules and things like that. But in all fairness, it's not mandatory.
No, I don't need
required.
it.
It's
and
not
I was
required.
thinking, I don't think I need my tank to dim up or ramp down. I'm kind of like, I'm good when, pow, I get the blue. I get my couple hours in the morning before the metal halide starts up, and then, it kicks in, and throughout the day, they're on all day.
Right.
And then those metal halides cycle off, and I'm back to this beautiful, this part of the tank is what I see at night, which is awesome.
Right.
As well as early in the morning. I actually love the look of how it came out.
Well, the interesting statement that you'd made earlier, too, see, with the XHOs, and that's another kind of misconception with the XHOs or the ReefBrites in general, and that they're just blue LEDs.
Yeah.
Well, they're not. There's actual multiple wavelengths.
Right.
There's actual multiple wavelengths. I've taken some flack over it over the years because people have always said, well, what are those wavelengths?
Right, they want to know the nanometers.
I liken it to this. If you go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and say, hey, I'd like the secret recipe for your chicken.
Right.
They're just going to smile at you and give you your chicken and say, have a nice day. So that's the thing. The wavelengths themselves are unique because even you yourself expressed that you had some corals here that under the VHOs and your existing lighting,
brown.
now they're displaying colors under the XHOs that they weren't under the VHOs using the same metal halide lighting. So
really
there's
surprises
something
me.
there that wasn't there before.
Yeah, it really surprised me because that coral is way down on the sandbed. So that's a long, that's probably 28 inches from LED bulb down to that coral.
Right.
And yet it's getting the greens, which had been brown for years.
Exactly. And the key is, too, is it's like I was discussing with AJ earlier. As reefers, we generally think that more is always better. With lighting, it's all about balance.
Yes.
Because there is such a thing as too much light at given wavelengths, and you get saturation and photo inhibition and everything else like that. So the key with the XHOs and a lot of the products that we generally try to design for the industry and the hobby as a whole, the real trick is balancing that energy.
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, we're throwing a bunch of LEDs in this thing and, the more the better kind of thing. It's about balancing that energy.
Yeah, no, more isn't better.
Right.
It's an easy thing to say, well, if I get this, I'm going to run it longer and I'll get even better. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of times corals will decline when you run your lights too long.
Exactly. We had discussed this earlier because you run yours, maybe your halides about 6.5 hours?
Per day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I stagger them. So my first one comes on, and then an hour and a half later, the next one comes on, an hour and a half after that. So that's how I get a longer day out because it's like the sun is moving across the tank.
Yep. And interestingly enough, by doing that, you're getting light arriving at different angles
Yes.
at different intensities.
Yeah, that's true. Because
Instead
the
of
coral's
just
getting
bam.
some light from the side, just like the sun coming over.
Exactly.
And then it gets the
Exactly.
next hit, and the coral thinks, oh, it's moved, when I really just tricked it.
Well, and years ago, you remember they had the motorized systems where
Yes.
they used to move the halides? That was basically the same thing, was to move what we call the angle of incident.
Right.
So that you're getting light arriving at different
I
angles.
always wanted to have like some kind of a PVC frame that could move the light at a parabolic arch, rather than just going straight back and forth. It seems so boring.
Yeah.
But I never did it. It was one of those ideas.
But it would definitely make for a good video.
It would be fun to make. Something to fabricate. Let's see, what else can I ask you? When someone buys it, since they're going to want to know, when somebody buys the XHO lighting from ReefBrite, how long's the warranty?
It's typically a 1 year. It's a 1 year base warranty. Here's the funny thing about warranties: when you get something with some ridiculously crazy warranty, and now we're just speaking very pragmatically,
Right.
okay? A lot of times this is done with the intention that most people will never return the product.
Yes.
In fact,
They resell it.
they'd either resell it, or 8 years from now, they may not even be using that particular product. They've
Right.
sold it, they've moved on to something else.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing about the ReefBrites, and it's almost comical, where we've seen people sell their lighting systems, but keep the ReefBrites. They say, oh, no, ReefBrites aren't for sale.
I'm keeping those.
Yeah, I'm keeping those because I want to add them to my other lights.
Right.
On a funny note, there was a video, I think it was last year, with Sanjay and Mike Paletta. And there's Mike Paletta doing this great article on the Radions, which are fantastic lights, by the way. The Radions, they're a fantastic product. So Sanjay's talking to Mike, and he does one of these things, and he says, hey, those are ReefBrites up in there. He says, what the heck are they doing? We're doing a Radion video here. Mike says, listen, I love my Radions, but I'm not getting rid of my ReefBrites.
Oh, yeah.
And that's that unique spectral thing that I had mentioned earlier. There really is kind of a
They hit that perfect spot.
Exactly.
that we like, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I know that's an overused word, but when I looked at my tank, my first inclination, when I first started, I got the installation done. My tank was going through a bacterial bloom, and I couldn't even see through the water, so I was kind of disgusted and waiting for things to settle down. And it took weeks for this bacteria, because I got it to go down, and it came back. And then it went away, and it came back a third time. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to finish this video because I have no clean tank. And, it's just funny because I've been saying for the last 10 days, I want to finish this video. And then you called me yesterday and say, hey, we're coming to town. I was like, perfect, I'm going to wrap up the video with you here.
Well, and
But look how pretty these corals are. And you can actually tell everyone what you thought of my corals under your light when you look from above.
Oh, no, I thought that two things. One, the tank is beautiful. Obviously, the tank is gorgeous. What I liked is that they look very natural.
Yeah.
Of course you get that fluorescence and pop.
Right.
But more importantly, it's just very natural.
Yeah.
Again, you're not getting that disco-y look. You're not getting that collimated spotlight kind of thing.
Right.
It's just a very natural, where everything is just balanced, and reflecting nicely. And it's so funny with the XHOs, because first of all, I know that you were a longtime VHO fan.
Oh, yeah, since probably 2002.
Listen, VHOs were fantastic, and again, we're getting back to that spectral composition.
Right.
So, and the other thing, like with the XHOs, it's always hard to try something new.
Yeah,
And normally, as a reefer,
that's me.
I often tell people not to try. Reefer 101. If something's working,
Yeah,
do not change or fix it.
right.
Don't mess with a good
Yeah,
thing.
my corals like what they get.
Exactly. But with the XHO products, like the comment you made, where you were kind of blown away when you turned them on. As you know, you're a professional photographer and you do your videos and everything else. It's almost impossible to record the actual effect in video. Even in this video,
Yeah,
they're
to match
not
your
seeing,
eyes, it's really hard.
They're
yes.
not seeing what we're seeing here. So with the XHOs, are they expensive? Yes, they are. We have the Tech series and other series as well. We're proud that we make them right here in the U.S., so we control the quality and things like that.
Yeah, I like that.
But your statement, I've gotten from so many people where it's like, I was really concerned because the lights are a little expensive, but you know what? I finally bit the bullet and I bought one of these for my tanks, and it's one of those things you really kind of have to see in person.
Right, no, I agree, and that was the thing. it's not like you can rent one and see if it's going to work.
You know,
You have to buy it.
we should look into that. Maybe a leasing program or something.
Yeah, just lock their credit card down.
Yeah, you
Call
know,
today.
Right, maybe a leasing program or something.
But it would be nice to kind of do a test, and that way you could know for sure. But my inclination, once the water was clear, once the bacterial bloom had gone away, and by the way I was getting rid of the bacteria was dosing peroxide. And I just would dose some peroxide, and the next day the water was clear. I was like, all right, I solved it. And then the bacteria came back. But when it finally went clear, my impression of how the tank looked under XHOs only was like when you install a brand new VHO bulb. Those bulbs look amazing the first time you screw them in. And they pop for, I'd say, let's just say 21 days. And it's not that they lose their intensity, but that incredible glow, maybe you just get used to it. But it seems so gorgeous when it's a brand new bulb. When you're replacing an old bulb, you know, your tank was blue, but you put the new one in, you see purple. It's like a stronger, newer, hotter bulb.
Yeah.
And the XHO did that instantly, but added even more. It added more pop, and that was what really impressed me. And I needed some clear water to see the pop, because
Right.
I was looking through a haze, and so I was kind of disgusted, and I wasn't sure what was happening. You know, not with the light, just with my tank wasn't where I wanted it to be.
Right, right.
And I mentioned to you, I mentioned on Facebook recently how I just want to get in here and I want to modify. I want to take this whole coral and move it down, and like cut out all the dead and bring it down, say 8 inches, and have room for coral growth. But there's no way to remove this coral intact, and there's no way to secure that coral once it's been
Right.
hacked where it needs to be. So
Well, and then the problem is too is that, by the way, I had a top-down view of this tank. Absolutely amazing. It's like
Yeah, it's great
you
from
should
above.
start filling it from up top.
I should just lower the tank. That's
Right,
what I
there
need to
you
do.
go.
You know, just take this whole thing,
Just
bring it
lower
down
the
here, and
tank
I
and
can look
everything's
down at my
yeah.
tank. Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm at the top. It's a problem. And when I change it, everything's going to break. Everything's going to snap. I'm going to be down to kibbles and bits. So
Right.
I hate to touch it, but at the same time, I gotta. So thank you so much for giving us a little insight into. I like that they're made in America. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we take a lot of pride in that. We've always
should.
We try to make as much as we can here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do take pride in that. But more importantly, it really helps us control the quality.
Yeah.
Rather than just outsource it.
I mean, that's it. You gotta have eyes on.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for coming to town to visit your grandson. That
Oh,
worked
yeah.
out really well for me.
Well, and plus, hey, listen, I got to see Minion. We can't forget about Minion.
True, yeah. Minion
We
is an
can't forget-
exciting new CNC machine that I will be sharing a video about in the near future. So thank
So,
you so much, and
Mark,
I hope you
thank
enjoy
you.
your time here in Fort Worth.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that was cool that Tullio was here in the area and was able to pop in during the period I'm actually working with my tank. I got to tell you guys, the XHOs are no lie. I had my doubts, big time. As you saw in my conversation with Tullio, I almost wanted to borrow them or lease them or rent them to see how they work, because spending that kind of money up front is tough. But the tank looks amazing. The light reaches from top to bottom. I see corals that are glowing that weren't. They were all browned out, and their green is coming back after, I guess I've been running them about 6 weeks straight now. One other little thing that I really love about them versus the VHOs, first of all, they are very clean in the light rack, which you saw. But what I really appreciate is they focus the light inside the tank and doesn't just fill the room with blue. So I can actually walk around my tank, and if I'm on FaceTime with a friend, I'm not Papa Smurf. I'm actually Mark next to an aquarium, and the blue is in the tank, and I can be next to it, and the lighting is fine on me. I don't look all crazy and blown out. And that's kind of cool, because if this is off and I'm watching TV, I don't have blue blasting me in the room, because that's one of the reasons I toss this board up here. People have asked me about woodwork, but someday. In the meantime, I just put it up here because people keep saying, well, when are you going to cover it? So I put a cover, just so you guys will quit telling me to cover it. But I actually don't mind it being wide open, but when I had the VHOs glowing, it was kind of blinding during television time. Now I can literally take this off, and I'm not blinded at all because the light is focused down inside the tank. And that's a huge perk when it comes to lighting. They turn on, they turn off, day in, day out, no issues whatsoever. They stay super clean because they're enclosed. I haven't even had to wipe them down yet. And I control them with the Apex. I just put them into 2 separate plugs, and I have them set where they both come on at the same time. So the front one and the back one come on at the same time. Though I could stagger them since they're separate plugs. I just chose not to. It's almost kind of weird to have the front glowing blue and the back dark. So I've just had it together. And I'm happy with the way that's working. So I hope that you found this interesting. There's more to come. I know you've been waiting months for a new video. Well, this is the first one, and they're going to start rolling out again now that my life is finally getting back to the routine I need. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. That way you won't miss what comes out next. And I'll see you guys real soon.